everyone, welcome to our Zoom facilitation training. How can we engage our learners online? And this is a very, very difficult topic. I don't know about you, and for me personally, I find it's actually almost like so natural for all of us to think that, hey, once you become a Christian, you would know how to facilitate online. And I think being a Christian for over almost 30 years, and I think over time, over the years, I have experienced many different facilitation groups, and some are very effective, some are not so effective. There are a lot of times when we lead a group, we have a lot of baggage from the past, and the bad habits that we learn, we kind of carry it through to lead a small group. So I hope that when we actually meet face to face, I mean via Zoom, we will spend more time talking about this very topic that I'm really personally very passionate about, because I truly think a facilitator can either make or break a group. I've been to several groups before where the facilitator was not so effective. So a lot of times I actually just joined for a little bit and I just left the group. Some facilitator loves to talk and that they just occupy the whole time. And that kind of, not very interesting for those who are actually sitting in a group. Some of us actually grew up in an Asian background, and a lot of times we kind of brought our Asian education system into Bible studies, and it's asking questions of our students is not something that we commonly practice, and we kind of assume sometimes the Bible study is really one way, it's us being the teacher talking to them the whole time. So I want all of us, before we meet, a few things I want us to be aware of, especially how what kind of mindset we should be in when we actually have the facilitation workshop together. There are three objectives I want us to pay attention through this new workshop, that when we meet face to face, you might learn new things that if you've never been to a workshop like this, you want to learn new things that you've never been learned. And learn some of the things that, some of the bad habits that we've been using when we lead a small group. So through the time that we actually have the workshop, we'll unfold some of the bad habits that we often, just without aware of it, that we've been using it in the wrong way. The last objective for me is for you to unlearn some of the things that to relearn, actually, I should say relearn some of the things that that will be helpful for you to be a more effective facilitators. So let me show you a quick map for what we're going to talk about today. Now, in this video, I will be focused on the pre-class section. And when we actually meet face-to-face, we'll be talking about more about in-class delivery and lesson at end of class. Because I find it is more fruitful if I give you this video beforehand. You can watch it so that, when we are actually together, we can focus on the essential things about facilitation. So let's go in and see what the pre-class is like. Now, let me ask you a question. From your own experience, what makes a good or bad facilitator? So I want you to think about this question. Now, when we meet together, I want you to come with an answers. What have been something that, you experienced personally for a good facilitator or a bad facilitator? So I want you to come in when we meet via Zoom, online setting, that you'll be able to answer this question. Now, how do we engage learners online? Now, one thing that is very important when we do facilitation is we must have the right mindset. What do I mean by that? The right mindset is very important. I think one of the things that oftentimes when you look at these two pictures, what do you see the difference between these two pictures? Do you see any differences between these two pictures? Now, definitely on the left-hand side, you see these students raising their hand. Does it remind you of your childhood, like people just raise their hand to ask the questions? And definitely that, really resonate with me, because I grew up in Hong Kong, and it's a culture where people don't really ask a lot of questions. You just expect to listen in a class. where on the right hand side is more of a more relational, more like a conversational kind of group, more relational in the sense that people sit in a circle and they kind of bounce off ideas and share ideas together. So you don't really have particular one person in authority, except of course the facilitator is the one who's guiding through. So what kind of mindset do you have when you are leading a Bible study? Do you have a mindset of more on the left hand side where people ask questions like as students or like a little children, or are you thinking if this would be more of a productive way to lead a Bible study? Now, what is the problem if we teach adults like they're kids? Now, think for a minute. If you've been to a group before that the facilitator just kept talking, they never asked any question, how did you feel as a learner? Well, I'm sure for me, definitely I felt very, very bored and not engaging at all. And very quickly, I lost my interest and I definitely would leave the group because I just don't feel this is the right group for me. I have my opinions. I want to share my lives as well and not necessarily just hearing what one person have to say. It's not a one-man show really. So there are a few things I want you to understand as a facilitator. What are some of the important things we need to know about adult learners? So here are a few things that is very important to understand our adult learner. Now, adults learn at any age and every age. So right now, probably if I asked you, you're probably watching YouTube on your own to find out how to fix your tap or how to grow certain things or how to cook a meal, a certain meal, how to make a shepherd pie. I don't know what kind of dishes you want to make, but I'm sure all of us have experience of learning things online on our own. At the same time, adults learn things on their own. Another thing is most adults wearing many hats, so which means they have many responsibilities, and that is a very important insight because that means we don't want to waste people's time. The fact that they can come, they sacrifice a lot to be able to come to our Bible study. So make sure we prepare, not wasting people's time. Another thing is have accumulate many experiences. They may have many experiences in life that they want to see how the Bible actually related to the personal life. So they want to see the relevance. And they might gone through many phases over the lifetime. Some, for example, if you're with a mom's group, for example, you're teaching women, and they might be from a daughter to a students, and they got married and they may have children, and they go through different phases. Like even for men, right, they gone through different phases. They got married, they have kids, or some they don't. So all of us gone through different seasons of our life, and we have different needs. And last characteristic is like adults have many anxiety about learning new things. So one thing we need to bear in mind is we want to be a cheerleader for them. When they come to our group, the last thing they want is to come and feel deflated or defeated. So we, as a group leader, as a cheerleader, I think personally, as a facilitator, we have to be a cheerleader to cheer them on, to learn new things, and not to make them feel even worse about themselves. There are a few other things that we need to pay attention to about adult characteristic. For example, respect. I think adults want to feel respected to be in a group, and immediately a sense of wanting to be able to apply what they've learned right away. So this is very important. So they don't feel like, so what, I'm learning this. So we have to encourage them at the beginning. Hey, this is something that you need and is relevant to their lives. So relevance is also very important. And saying that, which means we have to be very be careful and also pay attention. What kind of needs, the needs of our students. How can we make the Bible relevant to their lives? Let's say if they are a mom, they're in isolation, they feel like they have to stay home, and how does the Bible bring hopes to them? Or if you're talking about senior that they're home, what kind of hope that they can see in the Bible? So understanding our learners' needs is very important. How is that we make it relevant to them? So try to put yourself in your students' shoes, in a sense, in your learners' shoes. What are some of the things that they're going through in their lives, and how is it we as a facilitator teacher be able to bridge the gap, bring the Bible relevance to them? Also, they want to feel safe. Is it a safe environment for them to share? or they will feel, oh, I'm not so sure I want to share in this group because I'm not so sure if people would actually use what I shared and gossip about me. So this is very, very important issues. And engagement. Do you engage your learner when you lead a group, or you just talk for 90% of the time? Leave no room for them to share how they feel, how they think about the passage, and if there's no engagement at all. So once again, you're teaching them like a bigger kids. Last thing is inclusion. Do they feel included in a group, or they feel like, oh, they're pockets of people, they only friends with certain group of people, they always in a group, and I felt like a outsider to the group. So what can we do to include everyone so that they feel they are really part of the groups? So what are some of the implications for us in light of what I just talked about? Knowing that the needs of the adult learners and the characteristics of the adult learners. Now, here are a few things that we can do to engage our adult learners. For sure, we want to engage them in conversation. In conversation, the things that we trying to communicate will be related to the experience on the subject at hand. So you want something that is relevant to their life and let them bridge the gap. How does that relate to their lives? And dialogue to help them to interpret and evaluate material that is relevant to their lives. The other thing may be they know what they want to know and why. So don't treat them like bigger kids and lecture them, or fill them up like a feeding duck. We have that expressions when we were in Hong Kong. That is like a containers. You're trying to fill all the information they need to know this. But the trick is, how can you ask the right questions for them to discover your answers themselves? So how can you ask the right questions for them to think through it and discover the questions themselves? So later on, we will talk more when we meet face to face in the facilitation training. What about not preach them, but not to just to guide, but not to preach and lecture them? Now, in light of all this, how would you define the role of a teacher facilitator? Our role is like the French word facilitate is actually to make easier. Okay, our role is to walk alongside them, to learn together, and being a catalyst to learning, discuss content in a shared relationship and investment in a mutual learning. If you see this picture here, we're almost like a tour guide, just guiding them through for the materials that we want them to know, the Bible study we want them through. We just guide them through, asking good questions and help them to find the truth themselves. So here's my definition. The role of a teaching facilitator is to facilitate and teach just enough information to encourage and guide an interaction among learners to discover the truth themselves in a harmonious and relational environment. So you must let your learners to find their own voice. So here, the portion number 1, I hope it's been helpful to you to understand our learners, because that is very crucial mindset for all of us as a facilitator.